Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Courtney Zentz, the founder of Tiny Transitions and the creator of the Sleep Steps program. I'm coming to you live today with another amazing sleep coaching and education session. And we're talking today in part two of this series known as Making Over Bedtime about the number one mistake that so many parents make when it comes to sleep, really the first 5, if not even 10 years of life for children. So if you've got a little one, you're going to want to listen up to this because we're diving in on exactly what happens when this happens and exactly why it causes such sleep havoc. So if you're new to me, I teach a lot about sleep education for newborns, infants, toddlers, school-age children, and adults. I've had a private practice for sleep consulting for almost a decade and work with people all over the world to build healthy sleep habits in their home. And I do this series called Making Over Bedtime that kicked off yesterday with session one, where we talked a lot about sleep foundations. In today's session, if you're catching this on day two, there's other videos that are linked right around this so that you can see all the different sessions. We're talking about the number one mistake parents make with sleep. And then in session three, we're talking about the ideal bedtime routine, what time it should be, and how you make sure that it's a part of the day that you love and that anxiety is not building around bedtime. And then session four, sleep training methods. There's a lot out there about sleep training methods and which method you use and when. So we're going to kind of decrypt all of that for you on session number four. And then session five, we're going to dive into sleep regressions, why they happen, and how you can avoid them or minimize their impact as it relates to sleep. So let's go ahead and jump in. And as always, if you have questions or things that you need, you can find us out at tinytransitions.com. Both myself and my amazing team of pediatric and adult sleep coaches are always there to help. So without further ado, we're going to jump in today to the number one mistake parents make with sleep. And I'll tell you, it's a single word: overtired. Most children come home from the hospital in the carrier. The doctor's wave as you're leaving the hospital, and that's it. That's the education that we get, at least here in America. And a lot of parents don't know. And yes, there is an aspect of intuition when it comes to raising a child, but we're not educated on what we're supposed to do and how long kids should stay awake and what an ideal schedule looks like that's really good. And that's part of what I'm going to teach you today and why it's so important. Because the number one mistake I see with newborns, with infants, with toddlers is that everybody, including you, is really overtired. And what happens is I dove into it a little bit yesterday is you get stuck in this hamster wheel, right? Because early bedtimes, right, are really good. Overtired bedtimes cause trouble settling. They cause multiple night wakings. They cause early morning wakings. They cause short naps that are inconsistent. And as kids grow, they also cause behavior. And nobody wants to be around a tired toddler. I have an 8 and 10-year-old, and I don't want to be around them when they're tired either because they're miserable and I'm miserable. So we prioritize sleep here in the Zentz house. My kids are 8 and 10, and the lights are off, and they are asleep at the absolute latest of 8:30, sleeping in the morning. Their school bus doesn't come till 7:35. So they've got time to kind of get up around 7, get dressed, and are still getting all the sleep they need to feel refreshed. So we're going to dive in today to why overtired happens with a little bit of what's happening in the body first as babies, as infants, as toddlers, right? All through those first years of life. And I touched a bit on it yesterday, but it comes down to hormones that also balance with the stages and cycles of sleep. So I'm taking a minute to kind of explain when your child goes to bed at night, they are going into their deepest and most restorative sleep. So down here, you're at stage 4 sleep. That's the really deep restorative sleep. You're going to notice that first chunk of the night, kids are sleeping in restorative sleep. And if they miss that, they don't get to make it up. So they kind of often wake a little bit groggy, probably not as refreshed if they missed this first chunk of the night. And that includes you too. So that's your deepest and most restorative night. The back half of the night, as you'll see here, you're either in REM sleep or you're in stage 1 sleep. Both are really light, and you're sort of ping ponging between those the entire back half of the night. Why does this matter? Well, you have to make sure that you understand the stages and cycles of sleep because that's going to be impactful for any age and stage. Okay. Newborns, for example, can be awake a certain period of time before they have to take a nap, right? Newborns sleep a whole lot. So usually it's about 45 to 60 minutes that your newborn should be awake, either fed, play a little goo goo gaga, maybe some tummy time, change the diaper, and they're going back to bed. Okay. Around 3 months of age, things baseline out a little bit and you're at about 90 minutes. Okay. Around 4 months, it's about 30 minutes more. So you're at about 2 hours. 5 months, 2.5 hours. 6 months, around 3 hours. And then you kind of stay there and you sort of pause for a bit. So between 6 months and 12 months, a lot of kids are somewhere around that 3 hour range, which also allows for a set nap schedule. And we'll talk about nap schedules today. But after 12 months of age, it's no longer the awake window that you're managing, it's more of the fixed schedule. So, most of the time, children between 12 and 15 months, ideally a little closer to 12, will move to one nap a day. That is like Graceland for parents, right? Because your child's going to typically wake at the same time every day. They're going to typically go to bed at the same time every day. And they're going to take one consistent consolidated nap that actually lets you get some things done if they are home with you on the weekends or during the day, and that nap time is typically between the range of 12:45 and 3 o'clock. Now, I give these ranges because someone, as a pediatric sleep coach, I work on oftentimes a 7 to 7 type day. 7 o'clock bedtime, 7 o'clock wake up, and that's 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. With kids, you've got a little bit of flexibility, but not much more than 8 o'clock. Okay, now I work with families privately in other countries like Barcelona, where they're not eating dinner till 9 o'clock, right? Or in India, where traditionally they're going to bed a little bit later. And the families that I work with there say, hey, like we've got a lot going on. We don't go to bed till 10 o'clock. How can we make this work? Because I really want my kid to sleep well, but I also have to be conducive to our lifestyle. And so I'll tell you, friends, it's all possible, right? I give you general information around probably 80% of the families I work with. The other 20%, you're looking at avoiding overtired, which is the main lesson today, because that's going to derail everything. So for folks that don't go to bed till 10 or 11 at night, you're really just putting a nap where most kids are going to bed, right? So there's ways to manage it as long as you're getting the total sleep that your child needs in a 24-hour period. Your overnight sleep might look a little bit different if you've got more naps in the day. As long as they're waking rested and refreshed, as long as you're waking rested and refreshed, you're fine. But when I speak about schedules, I'm working on a 7 to 7 day. If you're an 8 to 8 family, then you'll just adjust out by that hour. I don't recommend, frankly, that you go over 8 o'clock. And here's why: that's sunlight. So, unless you have a bat cave, that sunlight is naturally going to wake up your child in the morning at a certain time. And they are naturally going to be ready to go to bed ocularly when it starts to get dark. That's what triggers melatonin. So, that brings me to hormones, right? So, as we're talking about all of this, it makes sense because overtired is the devil. Okay. And it is so finicky for kids at every age and stage. Overtired causes manic trouble settling, right? Lots of endless crying. You can't seem to calm your child down. They're just freaking out, whether they're a baby or a toddler, right? We've all been around a tired toddler. That's usually overtired. Well, overtired triggers overstimulation. So then your baby can't settle, or they're crying and you know they're tired, but they can't seem to fall asleep. Your toddler was really, really tired at bedtime and then started running around the bedroom, right? And you're like, whoa, what just happened? Okay. Your child just got a second wind. So just like adults, right? If I try to stay up all night in college to study, somewhere around 11 or 12 o'clock, I'm going to get a second wind. Whereas like I'll be falling asleep and then I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good the rest of the night, right? Sometimes I do in-home consultations with families. I'm awake all night. Folks that work swing shifts, right? At the hospital, or doctors, right? Folks on call in a variety of different professions, they have to train their bodies to be able to manage to stay awake when their body really wants to be sleeping, especially if you ping pong back and forth. Okay. And there's a lot of recovery time in that because your body clock can get a bit messed up. All of this has to do with hormones. Okay. So your body has four of those main hormones kind of around sleep that I want to talk about today. You have adrenaline and cortisol. Okay. You have melatonin, right? And then you also have adenosine, which is a neurotransmitter. They call it the sleep pressure hormone, but it's really a neurotransmitter. So adenosine is what happens when you wake in the morning. Your adenosine levels rise, right? So this is an off day. And I do this because it makes it a little bit easier for you to understand what I'm explaining. When your baby wakes in the morning or your toddler wakes in the morning, as they're awake, they're building up their adenosine levels. That's sleep pressure. At the top, where this little X is, that is an ideal awake window. So at 4 months, it's 2 hours. At 9 months, it's 3 hours. If you miss that wake window, you're going into the yellow. Okay. Yellow is overtired. Your body is not napping, but your brain wants to. So what happens is it says, all right, well, we're going to spike your adrenaline and cortisol to try to help you stay awake. And then you go to lay them down in the crib. And all of a sudden, what happens? Well, they can't go to bed because they're super overstimulated, right? So if you miss the window, it kind of causes hormones too. And then what happens is they generally would take a shorter nap. So you can see how right here they're generally taking a shorter nap. Well, the problem is as soon as they wake from that short nap, their adenosine levels are rising. So now all of a sudden, if they're awake for the same awake window, now they're again into overtired sooner and things can start to be a mess. And then you're kind of ping ponging throughout the day. Around bedtime, when you're ready to go to bed, the sun goes down and your melatonin starts to rise. And then throughout the rest of the night, it is phasing out. Okay. Somewhere between 4 and 6 in the morning, there's two main things that happen. First, your cortisol levels are the highest between 4 and 6. At 4 a.m. is your coldest body temperature. So we have to pay attention to a child's bedroom and make sure it's typically between 68 and 70 degrees. Okay. And you're in your lightest stages of sleep. Remember, back half of the night, you're over here. So you could run a vacuum under the bed of your toddler at 10 o'clock at night, but you try to do that at 5 a.m. and they're going to be like, oh, I heard you. There's birds chirping outside, right? Because they're in light sleep. So there's high cortisol levels, there's light sleep, and they're a little bit easier to arouse because they've slept enough to be dangerous, right? But not enough to feel refreshed. Think about it. If your child slept for 8 hours last night, okay, but two times they came in and woke you up for 2 minutes each. Okay, so it wasn't a big deal. 4 minutes of your night was disrupted. No, go back to bed. No, go back to bed. You're going to wake up in the morning and feel probably pissed off and a bit tired and groggy. Why? Because your restorative sleep was interrupted. Okay. And this is where the body does the restorative stuff. And if you're getting interrupted overnight, even though you slept for 7 hours and 56 minutes, 4 minutes of it was interrupted. And so it breaks that consolidated restorative independent sleep. How you feel in the morning, my friends, is how your kids feel. They just cannot express it. Okay. So you have a newborn or an infant or a toddler, overtired can trigger all kinds of imbalances versus a balanced day where they have the independent ability to settle, they're eating well, they're napping consistently across the day. This becomes realistic, friends, probably between 4 and 5 months. Anything before that, you're simply managing the day to make sure kids are getting sleep. Sometimes it's supported, sometimes it's independent. I don't care. They need the sleep. I would far take 100% supported at the right times and then learn the skill and slowly decouple that, right? Which is what we do with sleep training when we work with families. We kind of look at the whole picture, what's going on, because every family's different. And then we go, all right, you're really heavy over here with props. We got to get you a little bit heavier over here with the independence, the right schedule, the right intake, all that good stuff to balance things out because sleep is a skill set. And when kids are deficient in it and rely on us to go to sleep, rocking, bouncing, feeding, nursing, laying with to sleep, that builds a negative sleep association. So then what happens is through the night, every single time your child wakes, right? They are passing through these cycles. And when they start to get here, which is typically 2 a.m. to about 7 a.m., you notice they're waking a lot more, right? Well, that's because they're arousing and they're going, hey, where are you? I need you to put me back to bed. Hey, where are you? I need you to nurse me back to sleep, right? You're the mechanism to sleep. So they're deficient in the skill. Okay. That's a lot of what we deal with. It's very common. So you're not alone if that's where you are right now, because things can sort of start to steamroll. I will never, ever sleep train a family who is tired because your child will cry forever. And that's not helpful. When we work together at Tiny Transitions, we do things very differently, intentionally to balance hormones, manage daytime sleep, get them on a schedule, build the skill, and then decouple everything over the course of about 2 weeks. It's gentle, it's effective, and your child does really well. And a lot of kind of inexperienced sleep coaches will do things all on day one. They're like, you're going to change the naps, you're going to change the bedtime, you're going to change the overnight, you're going to rip all the feedings out from overnight. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of tears that you don't have to listen to as the sleep coach, but the parent does. And they are hungry. They are overtired. And you're kind of trying to crowbar it all in. And does it work? Well, yeah, but nobody wants to sit there throughout the day for those 24 hours. Trust me. So we just do things different here. We've worked with families for almost 10 years now, lots and lots of families. And I see what works, frankly, and I see what doesn't work. And if you try to do things when a kid is overtired, it's always going to fail. Okay. So overtired is that number one thing that you want to protect. You want to understand what your child's age is and what their wake windows are. Out on tinytransitions.com, we have a schedule generator. It's free. Go out and generate a schedule for every age. It'll give you a baseline. I start them at the age of 0 through 3 months. So you can kind of see, while it's not a set schedule, you can understand how to maximize intake in the day and also start to get in a little bit of a loose schedule. When I came home from the hospital, I had severe postpartum anxiety. I was trying to nurse exclusively. I was trying to be a super mom and a super wife and a super person on maternity leave at my corporate gig. And I was just crushing it in the mom game. And I'm like, I'm going to be the best. And I was crumbling on the inside. Okay. Because I couldn't control sleep. And that drove me nuts. And finally, around 8 weeks, I started to get into this, which is what led me into this career because I became so fascinated with the ability for children to learn this in a way that made sense scientifically, right? And the lasting effect it's had on our family for the past 10 years. Okay. And in between there, I got my lactation designation and I got my postpartum doula certification, right? And all these different things that help to make sure that I'm staying on the up and up in the advice that we're giving. Okay. This isn't clinical sleep, it is a lack of education that so many families have. So you're not alone. And I'm so blessed that you found us. With what I'm teaching you today, you've got to avoid overtired. Okay. Then you've got to look at what else could be going on in my situation. If my child is getting the right amount of sleep and they're settling independently and they're doing it well, but maybe I'm exclusively breastfeeding and I have no idea what their intake is and they're still settling independently, but they're waking a couple times at night to eat, right? Well, how old are they? Generally over 6 months of age. I would say exclusively breastfed kids can sleep through the night pretty much no problem as long as they have the skill. Okay. But everybody's boobs are different, right? So, you might have Lefty who's a little bit of a dud. Mine was inverted, wasn't a big producer, right? Realities of being a mom. And you're trying to figure out how much milk your baby's getting. I always talk about weighted transfers, right? Because after you fix the schedule, intake is the next thing that follows, as I talked about yesterday. Kids need 24 to 32 ounces of milk. If they're not getting that milk, then they need to get it overnight, right? So if they're getting too much of it overnight and they're at the Vegas buffet at 2 a.m., then they're not going to be getting it in the morning at 7. So they're going to wake up not hungry, right? Well, now you've got a flipped kind of days and nights intake problem. Weighted transfers are really helpful. It's a scale. I actually just did a YouTube short on it this morning and an Instagram reel about weighted transfers. And what that is, if you've never heard of it, is you are to weigh your baby and then you nurse them and then you weigh them again. And that tells you how much milk they transferred, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever it might be. So you can have a better gauge. I was a huge proponent of ordering a scale. They're like 60 to 80 bucks on Amazon, and they're actually sensitive enough to do great. A lot of times pediatricians are like, don't do that. You'll drive yourself crazy. I'm type A. I needed to know what was coming out so I could manage what other variables there were. I do not like the tone that sometimes doctors will take and say like, oh, they're just a baby, like lean in and love parenting. I'm like, right. And then I come back at 4 months and my baby's lost, a couple pounds and you're all freaking me out. And now I'm going to have to supplement, do all this extra crazy stuff to bring them back up when I could have prevented it just by having a bit of knowledge from the scale. Okay. Everybody's different. You have to parent with a journey that is comfortable for you. I'm just sharing advice as both a pediatric sleep coach and as a parent who had 2 kids, is a lactation counselor and has been working with sleep for 10 years. There's knowledge in numbers, right? So you got to know how much sleep they're getting, what their awake windows are, how much milk they need, right? All of this good stuff to make sure that they're getting the best that they have to feel their best. Okay. So overtired and protecting overtired. When you talk about schedules, okay, again, a set schedule for a baby can be somewhere around 4 to 5 months of age. So between 4 and 5 months of age, they're typically moving from 4 naps a day, around 5 months to 3 naps a day, between 6 and 7 to 2 naps a day, and then between 12 and 15 to 1 nap a day. Okay. Somewhere around 3 to 4 years of age, a child will generally wean off naps. I have to say it kind of depends on the situation. It kind of depends on the kid. Okay. Both are age appropriate as long as they're getting the overall sleep at night. If your kid's 3 and weaning off a nap, they're probably passing out by 7 o'clock at night and sleep until 7 or 8 in the morning, right? Because they're tired and they need the sleep. And if they're not getting it at the nap, then they need it at bedtime or overnight, right? I've put kids that I work with as early to bed at 6 o'clock and parents are like, oh my gosh, they're going to be up at 4 a.m. You're a lunatic, but I'm going to listen to you because I paid you. The next morning they message me and they're like, it is 7:30 and they're still sleeping, right? Kids are tired and they need sleep. And it is the best thing you can do for them. Overtired for the next 10 years of your life, frankly, for the next 18 years of your life will be something you need to manage, because overtired just causes so many other repercussions that people don't think about and chronically tired is expressive in behavior, right? Expressive in intake. I had a client once that did not tell me that they were failure to thrive, and they hired me to work with their family, and they did not disclose that. To at the time, I was a bit disappointed at the end when I found that out, but the baby did beautifully and around 3 months. And at the end, the mother said to me, I am in tears. I'm physically seeing my baby grow in the past week since working with you. You have changed our life, and our baby is now eating, sleeping through the night, waking once or twice to eat overnight. They're growing. I'm physically watching them grow. Holy cow. In a matter of a week, you fixed our schedule, you fixed our sleep, you fixed our food problem. We were one step away from a feeding tube with our 3-month-old. And it was just that they were overtired. There is so much that stems from a baby being overtired, from a toddler being overtired, from you being overtired as a parent. And it's something that I protect with all I have is the sleep in our family. And I'm a little bit nuts about it, but it serves us well. And so I want to advise you to avoid overtired as well. And if you're stuck or you're struggling, check out tinytransitions.com. We have our amazing sleep steps program. It's $47 and you get access to me, live trainings every Wednesday where we jump in Zoom and we answer your questions as you're going through the program. And it's all encompassing, ages 0 through 4. Okay. You get the newborn information, you get the infant information, you get the toddler information, you get written sleep plans, you get 9 million videos teaching you about all kinds of different stuff. It's not really 9 million videos. I guess I can't really say that because then people will be like, there's not really 9 million videos, but it's the most comprehensive sleep coaching program on the market today that includes all of it for $47. Why? Why would you do that, Courtney? Because I'm trying to make a difference in the world and how people sleep. And it shouldn't be a 1% problem that only those that can afford $2,000 to work with me privately get the opportunity to do so. Sleep coaching can be cost prohibitive. Many people are home on maternity leave. Many people are on fixed income. Many people might be on a solo income. And this was my ability to take all of those courses that I see out on the market today that are all right, but they don't include coaching and private coaching, which I see over here and I've done for 10 years very successfully with my team of 8, and go, what was missing in the middle? And that's why I created Sleep Steps. We have amazing folks that work one-on-one every day with clients who want that level of support. And we have a beautiful program called Sleep Steps that services all of the other families that need help, need quality education and coaching and community. And that's what we're trying to do. So thank you so much for tuning into today, because we're talking all about overtired. And it's that one thing you're going to protect. Right. And now remember, tinytransitions.com. You can grab the sample schedules. You can book some time with myself or a member of our team. We offer free 20 to 30 minute complimentary consultations so we can understand what your challenges are and if we're actually the right person or if you need to go somewhere else for help, sleep, and support. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow along on our journey, and bye for now.